Every morning, I brush my teeth, shave, comb my hair, dress myself, make sure I look good. Because when you look good, you feel good. Then I'll have breakfast. Like I open the fridge and take jam, kaya. I like to start my day on a sweet note. Think yesterday that I do, sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. But things that happen, say 40 or 50 years ago, I can remember clearly.
Back in 2009, when I thought that Daddy had dementia when he started forgetting all his stuff, and when the doctor diagnosed Daddy got mild stage dementia, that's where we confirmed that Daddy had dementia. It was a tricky situation because in the same year, Mummy had cancer as well, back to back in a single month. It was a double whammy for us.
Very difficult for Daniel. That time Daniel just start work. He was very attentive to me. Every time ask me, okay or not, you want water or not, you want the massage or not. Because a lot of people support me. That's why you can stand all these things.
So in our caregiving journey, it was really a special one because Daddy supports Mummy, Mummy supports Daddy, and both of them support me. The community has really helped us in our situation because we've been living here for the last 40 years. From the food uncle at the hawker center to my neighbours around, I would like to thank my neighbours as well. But mainly because as we grew up in this situation, it's always nice for us to educate the people we live with. Despite dementia, my dad is still very active. He still does all his daily assisted living. He makes his own meals. Daddy also exercises quite a bit. And of course, his favorite hobby, singing, right?
A very good afternoon, friends, viewers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning to us live on Facebook and on YouTube. This is the Alzheimer's Disease Association, built with us 2020, presented by Musim Mas. This is a very special virtual mural unveiling event, the theme of which is building a dementia-inclusive society, one block at a time. My name is Ricardo. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time this afternoon to join us for this very meaningful occasion. The program today will be split into two large parts. We will begin with a dialogue that will offer you 4 different perspectives about dementia through the lenses of 4 very special guests. And a little bit later, we'll be unveiling and completing a very special virtual mural. We are here live from Kebun Baru Community Club, and today is also a very special day because, as many of you know, World Alzheimer's Month is commemorated in September, and the intent is to, of course, raise awareness about dementia and challenging the stigma that surrounds the condition. But the 21st of September is especially outstanding because it is also World Alzheimer's Day, which is why we are putting together this virtual event, especially for all of you out there. Now, here at ADA, we believe that persons living with dementia and their caregivers can lead meaningful and fulfilling lives despite the condition, if we rally around them as a community. And I'd like to take this time to thank our sponsors, Musim, a leading palm oil conglomerate in Asia, for presenting today's ADA Built With Us 2020 project. Now, today's project is a Lego project and is the latest one in an existing 2-year-long community partnership between ADA and Kebun Baru. With today's mural, ADA hopes to cement their relationship with Kebun Baru residents together with the support of the community. It is a beautiful, full-color Lego mural that depicts seniors of all ages and races enjoying a fulfilling and meaningful life with the support of the wider community. Individual pieces of Lego was put together as a mural, and these pieces of Lego was actually fixed by various members, various stakeholders in the community, which includes persons living with dementia, residents from Kebun Baru, families, caregivers, corporate partners, and ADA staff. So a very, very meaningful initiative indeed. The mural is drawn by artists Kelvin Chan and Raylin Chan, and it represents all our hopes to build a dementia-inclusive society. We are very happy to be here at Kebun Baru because Kebun Baru also aims to be one of the most dementia-friendly neighborhoods in Singapore. And ADA has been working with them for many years now, for 2 years and counting, to make this goal a reality. Let us now jump into the first segment of our program, where we'll be having a dialogue that shows you 4 different perspectives about dementia. I'm very happy now to welcome the 4 guests I have on the show. First, we are very glad to welcome on my left Mr. Kwek Hien Chuan Henry, advisor to Kebun Baru grassroots organizations. We are also very happy to welcome CEO of Alzheimer's Disease Association, Mr. Jason Fu. We are also privileged to have with us a person living with young onset dementia and a dementia self-advocate, Mrs. Emily Ong. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
And last but not least, we have a caregiver to a person with dementia, a Kebun Baru resident for over 20 years, and the vice chairman of the Kebun Baru Active Aging Committee, Mr. Francis Leong. Hello, Francis.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, I'm going to invite all my guests to pick up your microphone, please, as we get started. Okay. Jason, since ADA is our host today, I think it's only right to start with you. September is World Alzheimer's Month. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So every year in September, all the Alzheimer's associations around the world try to commemorate World Alzheimer's Month. It's a month where we feel we need to focus on people with dementia. And for the last 2 or 3 years, the theme for World Alzheimer's Month has been, let's talk about dementia. So when we talk about dementia, basically you're creating awareness of dementia, as well as you are trying to reduce the stigma of dementia and to empower people with dementia to be part of the community, be still part of the community, and for them to step out of their comfort zone and be accepted by the community.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Jason. I now want to talk a little bit about ADA's vision for Singapore to be a dementia-inclusive society. What does that mean to you and ADA?
For us in ADA, Dementia Inclusive Society means that the community is willing to still accept people with dementia. It's not easy. You have to empower the people with dementia to be brave enough to step out. Don't hide at home. Come up and be still part of the community. But other than that, the community also needs to step up and do some changes to allow the people with dementia to be still within the community. So you can't just say people with dementia, let's go out to the community, but the community doesn't support them, doesn't help them. So in the community, you have things like awareness. You create awareness within the community so that people know how to support, know how to interact with people with dementia when they need the help. People with dementia have this hidden disability, and sometimes they do need help, and that's when the community can step up. At the same time, you need certain environmental changes within the community as well to allow people with dementia to move around, to be able to navigate. And that's why we are so glad that Kebun Baru has taken all these steps and have worked with us so closely to make sure that the environmental changes, the awareness, and the support that we can give people with dementia is created within this constituency.
Jason, right behind you is a beautiful mural, which I think now the audience has a bit of a glimpse too. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this idea of this Lego mural and specifically this ADA Built With Us initiative came about?
Okay, I think, Ricardo, you mentioned that we have been working with Kebun Baru for like more than 2 years now, and we're really very grateful to Henry and his grassroots leaders and the whole community of Kebun Baru who have been so supportive of helping the people with dementia in Kebun Baru. And so we had one project called Wayfinding Project in Kebun Baru, where we did some murals on some blocks to help people with dementia be able to navigate. And as you know, I'm not sure whether Emily will have time to share with you, for people with dementia, putting signs, putting arrows, putting things like that don't quite work for them. But having a mural, being able to recognize where they are helps. So from that idea, we thought, yeah, why don't we come up with a dedicated mural like this Lego, which really sums up the whole fantastic relationship we have with the Kebun Baru community and with Henry and his team. And the Lego also is somehow or other signifies, because the Lego pieces basically represents different part of the community coming together to form a dementia-friendly community. And it's like what they say, you need the whole village to come together to be able to do this. It's not one person, it's not a group of people, but everybody. So that Lego mural we thought was really a good way to depict that. And it's like what Ricardo had mentioned, one block at a time, one piece at a time, and we will start to build this fantastic place in Kebun Baru.
Thank you. And on that note, Jason, I'm going to hand the time over to Henry. Henry, can you share with us a little bit more about Kebun Baru being a dementia-friendly community and how the journey has been so far?
Yeah, thank you, Ricardo. First of all, I'll say that for most of us here, aging is an eventual destination. And for some of us, dementia is something that will accompany us and our loved ones as we age. So dementia is something that is pressing, especially for Kebun Baru, given the fact that 40% of our residents today, and even more in the future, are seniors from the Merdeka and the Pioneer generation. So when we heard about ADA wanting to implement some projects, we put our hands up and say, ADA, can you adopt us? Can you help us be the most dementia-friendly community that we can be? And so we're very fortunate that ADA has been our generous partner. In fact, rather than thanking us, actually we should be thanking ADA for this wonderful journey we've been in. And so we started off this journey by trying to stocktake where things are. So ADA and NUS and Kebun Baru, we went on this joint project where students and researchers stocktake our residents' perception of dementia, how ready we are, and more importantly, together with all the stakeholders, come up with a roadmap of how we want to achieve that inclusive, dementia-friendly and inclusive community. So in the last few 2.5 years, we've been really, really active. We have projects where ADA brought in international experts, as well as local experts to educate us about what it means. More importantly, ADA also helped us set up this advisory group of people with dementia as well as caregivers, so that we hear from the voice of the people of whose lives we're trying to touch. You know, it's one thing for experts to tell us and ourselves to think about what our community, dementia community needs, but more importantly, our community of dementia friends also advise us on how to make this happen. And therefore, in the last 2.5 years, we have embarked on a very, very busy period, coming of many different projects. Beyond the Wayfinder projects, we also connected up with community partners like St. Luke's Elder Care, like the childcare called Child at Street 11. We did videos involving the young kindergarten kids with people with dementia to bring the point home that our friends with dementia are still and can be very active in the community. We also started working on something called the Memories Cafe, so that our dementia friends as well as the caregivers have a safe space to come over at our Block 113 on Asmus Village to hang out and bond with each other. We also are in the process of trying to explain to all the stakeholders in Kebun Baru, the VWOs, the healthcare system, the same set of rules, the SOP, so that we can all come together and support our friends with dementia. And so all this wonderful, wonderful progress is captured by this report by NUS on inclusive dementia-friendly community. And we are certainly at a good place right now, but there's a lot more we need to do.
Henry, let me catch on that final point about a lot more that we need to do. Of course, I'm sure COVID has sort of thrown a spanner in the works a little bit, but tell us a bit more about how you've been responding and also what some plans are.
Yes, COVID has indeed thrown a spanner on the works on our exciting plans. So, because a lot of activities needed to be done differently or scaled back or postponed. Even for ourselves in Kebun Baru, we had a major announcement with the agency, a several thousand people event, which was scoped down 4 times. Eventually, we still couldn't hold it. So that was how challenging it is on the ground to make something happen. And also this year, I believe ADA wanted to host an international conference in Singapore, and Kebun Baru was supposed to be presenting what we have done. Also, that is hard to make it happen. So COVID-19 has indeed impact how we work in many areas at the community level. But nevertheless, I must really give credit to ADA for being able to persevere even despite this COVID. During the circuit breaker time, we were able to start a lot more Zoom conferences with caregivers. I also joined in some of them where we can provide support during this critical period. ADA also came up with a concept where they can help caregivers bring their loved ones out. Sometimes the loved ones may not be able to wear masks all the time. So getting a doctor certificate, getting MOH agreement, and getting the community's agreement to that this person, please be respectful and helpful for this person with dementia, given the mask advisory. So those are the kinks that came along the way. Now, but I think that we are where we are right now is we're regrouping and we are recharged and we are ready to step forward again. And there's a lot of very exciting projects coming up. For example, ADA and us, we are coming up with a dementia-friendly model of care for vulnerable residents. There's some very exciting announcements I hope to be able to make soon with ADA. Let's watch this space, but this is substantive. Moving forward, building on what Jason said about the wayfinding project, I will commit a good amount of infrastructure money to make sure that our infrastructure is senior friendly in Kebun Baru, and of course that means that it must also be dementia friendly. So to sum up, we are now at the very exciting stage of the execution phase of it. So we have there's a lot at stake for us to make sure that it's successful, because we hope that whatever ADA has generously helped us build in Kebun Baru, we can then radiate beyond Kebun Baru to the rest of Singapore and beyond. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Henry, for sharing that with us. And also, Henry, thank you for your leadership and Kebun Baru's deep support for these initiatives. So now that we've heard from our leaders, Jason and Henry, I'd like to now bring in our person living with dementia, Emily, as well as caregiver Francis into the conversation. But just before I bring them into the conversation, I just wanted to say hi to everyone watching us live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. I see on Facebook we consistently have about 50 people on a Monday afternoon. That is a really encouraging sign. On YouTube we have about equal numbers as well. So thank you very much for tuning in today. Now, Emily, I'm going to come to you, and you've been living with dementia for about 2 years now,
Yes.
give or take. And I wanted to ask you, how was it like integrating into your environment and your community post-diagnosis?
Well, thanks, Ricardo. That's a good question. Well, actually, when upon diagnosis, it was very difficult because a diagnosis of dementia, which is very highly stigmatized condition, really puts you down, and you really lost your self-confidence. And but then over time you start to pick up yourself, and with adaptations and accommodation being met with strategy, you learn to navigate your lives around, and you start to normalize life even with dementia. Yeah. So there are lots of things, of course, that I encountered living with dementia because of my cognitive decline, and then there are things that which I feel that it is good to have and that is lacking, and I guess that is why I become very strong in my advocacy, and I'm very I really want to work towards an inclusive community, or you call it dementia-friendly community. Yeah.
Certainly, I want to hear your suggestions and inputs as well on this topic, Emily. But just before I get to that, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the wayfinding project that both Henry and Jason spoke about. You served as a consultant of some sorts on that project. How was that experience like?
Oh, wow. Okay. Consultant is a very heavy word. yes, an advisor. Yeah, actually, it was a very interesting. Actually, I do it together with another person living with dementia. His name is Anjang, and for us, it's just like a dream come true, because the invitations from KB, from sorry, I've forgotten your name. Henry Quack, from Henry Quack, when he visit us at one of our usual Voices for Hope program, and then we have a discussion, and that brought up to this wayfinding project. As you know, the wayfinding project is very important in the sense that as a person living with dementia, it is very hard for us to remember the numbers. Every blocks look the same, and for us, landmark is very important, and you cannot have it as a landmark when every blocks looks similar. So that is where when we are talking about what types of thing you can use. Abstract art is out. We cannot have abstract. I mean, our brain is not functioning at the normal brain functioning. So abstract is out. Okay. Then when ADA and the artists come out with suggestion like, what about sentimental thing like food? Wow, food is, you can connect, I can connect, right? And for person living with dementia, food is something that we will always remember because it's very immersive sensorial experience. So we might not be able to name the food, but we definitely can remember how the food tastes like. Yes. So the same thing with all those other things associated with eating, like carbs, like tingkat, all these are beautiful.
Do you have a favorite mural by any chance, Emily?
Oh, yes. Yes. Do you know what? Ang Kukui.
Oh, I see. That is one of the hot favorites, it seems, in this neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, Emily, now to follow up on what you mentioned just now. What else do you think, what more do you think we can do to build a dementia-inclusive society?
Well, Well, one thing is that we need the business people to collaborate with us. But, whether is it the grocery shop or even the kopitiam, and barber shop, but also including the local GPs, because they are the first line of the people that can really, help if anybody is having any kind of cognitive decline. As you can see that I'm young, I'm not old, right? So that means that there are young people who will have cognitive decline. And so GP come in very important, their role. So to make Kebun Baru even more dementia friendly, we really need to work with the GP to get the GP to sit in and help.
Thank you. That's a very practical and pragmatic suggestion. Thank you very much for your thoughts and inputs, Emily. Francis, Uncle Francis, I'm going to bring you into the conversation. You've been a resident at Kebun Baru for, it says here, about 20 years. Wow, that's wonderful. Tell us a bit more about how you've seen the community change and become more dementia friendly.
You mean in terms of Kebun Baru?
That's right.
Well, of course, over the years, there are more people who are aging. And of course, through my contact as a grassroots leader for 22 years, there are definitely some changes, And this is where we need to reach out to people whom we think can have this dementia, And this is some initiative that we are working on currently. So my role as a caregiver, of course, is rather challenging because especially in my case, I have to take care of my wife of 48 years. So hopefully we can celebrate our 50 years anniversary. So things sometimes we can take for granted because as I mentioned, is especially your wife. So we are also previously very active. Myself as a grassroots leader, and for her, she's her interest in dancing, in singing, So all of a sudden, this has changed because now, because of dementia, we can't really proceed with this, especially in dancing. I mean, in terms of ballroom dancing, for instance. So this is quite a challenge. And as I mentioned earlier, things sometimes we take for granted, especially on myself, because in the past we used to share things and so on, but now because I have to repeat many times, like for example, even going out, even coming to this session, since yesterday, I repeat about 20 times, So this is sometimes you can say is quite frustrating, but nevertheless, this is what I have to endure. And of course, on top of that, being human, sometimes I've also been guilty of it. That means I lose my cool and then shouted at her and so on. Next moment, I realized that, it's not normal. So I have to cool myself down. So these are the challenges of a so-called caregiver.
Uncle Francis, I thank you for sharing that with us. We speak a lot about the community coming together to support our persons in dementia and also our caregivers. Do you think that there's more the community can do?
Well, of course, I also attended quite a number of webinars to so-called listen to how caregivers should behave and what are the so-called many instances of various type of dementia. My wife, of course, got a mild dementia, but there are cases whereby they have a moderate or even more severe cases, and how these caregiver handle. So this sort of sharing session, this is where I can pick up, and this is actually very important. And of course, in Kebun Baru, we are also trying to work towards that. That's why we are trying to so-called getting more grassroots leaders involved. And at the same time, we have sharing session from people like Emily and Anchan. So to let them actually listen for themselves what the so-called difficulties they are facing and so on.
So Francis, just a closing question. How optimistic are you that many of these initiatives is going to make Kebun Baru and indeed Singapore a more dementia-friendly society?
Well, I think I'm quite positive about it because, of course, it has to work both ways. I mean, for us to share with all these people, but at the same time, we have to reach out to families that have such so-called people living with dementia. And not only that, we are also looking at, as earlier mentioned by Emily, shops and so on, and also to look at certain focal point. For example, if a person living with dementia lost their way, so where do they actually so-called refer to? So that from this focal point, they can contact either their family or our RC members, so that they can be so-called attended to, rather than in the past, anyone who lose their way, we normally say, oh, bring them to a police station, which is, I don't think is appropriate. So working within the community, I think that is the best way of having this sort of dementia-friendly community.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Uncle Francis. I just want to tell you that I heard you were married for 48 years,
Yes.
am I right?
Yes.
I'm married for half a year. So I hope to learn from your example as we go along. Now, I see that there are almost about 100 people watching us on both platforms. I just wanted everyone to close by sharing one of your personal tips or thoughts about how people watching can help us make Singapore and Kebun Baru even more dementia friendly. So like a bit like what Uncle Francis shared, right? What we can do to support our friends and neighbors. So maybe we start with Emily, we go to Jason, and then we wrap up with Henry. Emily?
Oh, okay.
One tip,
One tip, only limited to one tip. Okay, one tip is that please empower, enable, and engage people living with dementia, because we can use our lived experience to help to make things possible.
Thank you. Beautifully done. Jason?
For me, I think it's really getting the community to step up and support, provide more support for people with dementia. And if you don't mind, Ricardo, I just want to also thank some people who have made this project possible for us in Kebun Baru. 2.5 years ago, when we first wanted to do this, Lien Foundation was kind enough to give us some head start with some financial help to do this. And then now Musim is stepping in. And like what Emily said, it's not only the community. The community means people living in Kebun Baru, but also the business community that has the financial resources to help us. Like Henry did say, we have a lot of interesting projects coming up, lined up, but as always, I'm shameful, unfortunately, to say we need financial help, and so the community can help us in that way. So thank you.
And the closing word to you, Henry.
I'll end with the first point I made at the start, which is aging is a process that almost all of us have to go through, and for some of us, dementia is the specific journey that we have to go through, and it's no different from people who have other chronic health conditions. Now, if you really can accept that, then it will be, I think, we can expect all Singaporeans to open their hearts out to people with dementia, just like they open their hearts out to people who have other chronic conditions. It's natural, it's part of aging, and we can be there for them and their caregivers for as long as a journey and as a wonderful a journey as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry, Jason, Emily, and Francis. Friends, viewers, we are now going to proceed to the second highlight of today's ADA Build With Us 2020. We'll be completing the mural in just a few moments, but just before that, I'm going to show you a video on the journey we have taken to this point. Please enjoy. a beautifully done video. I want to give a big shout out to the ADA staff that worked throughout the last few hours to quickly cut that video together. You realize that the video is actually from today's event here at Kebun Baru CC, so they worked very hard behind the scenes. Now we're going to complete it. As you can see, this is a beautiful, beautiful mural behind me. There are 4 pieces that are yet to be complete. So to put in the first 2 pieces, I'm going to invite Jason and Emily to do the honors. Jason and Emily, please. Okay, good. That was Jason and Emily, and now we have 2 more pieces to complete, and I'd like to invite Henry and Francis and Uncle Francis to please complete the mural. Everybody, the moment we have been waiting for. The ADA, Building a Dementia Inclusive Society, presented by Musim mural is now complete. Big round of applause. Now, I want to thank everyone for your support and your viewership. We'd now like to invite Jason to present a token of appreciation to our guest here today. First, we'll present a token to the lovely Emily. Emily, thank you very much. Come to the middle a bit. Yeah, come to the middle a bit. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. All right, and we'd like to also present a token of appreciation to Uncle Francis for your lovely sharing. Thank you very much, Uncle Francis. And last but not least, we'd like to say a very, very big thank you to advisor to Kebun Baru Grassroots Organizations, Mr. Henry Quek. And to everyone watching today, on behalf of the organizers, ADA, thank you to our sponsors, Musim Mas, and all our supporters, to the members of the media watching, to our supporters watching, to our staff watching, to our clients watching, and to all of the staff behind the scenes that made today possible. On behalf of ADA, thank you for your support and love during this challenging time. Continue to stay strong, stay positive. My name is Ricardo. Thank you and good day. Bye-bye.